let's continue. When I was a little girl, there were not many female role models in football. So becoming a footballer, it was like a dream. It was something more or less impossible. I loved to play football in the schoolyard. I used to play with Jordi Cruyff or Tom Brins, for example. They used to go to my school in Barcelona, and I dreamt to be a football player. There were no Alexias or Aitanas or Olga Carmonas, for example, as I told you. There were not much female role models when I was a little girl. Now things have changed, but there is much, much, much more to do. Why is it so important that boys and girls have female role models? Not only footballers, but also coaches, CEOs, heads of performance. Let's find some answers with the next panel that it's in partnership with Rexona. So please, let's welcome now on stage Rita Guarino, former Inter-Head Coach Football Lab, Emily Heath, Global Brand Director Rexona, Amanda Lima, Head of Program Operations, Laureus Sport for Good, and the moderator, Eugenia, Károlyi, Popcev from LALIGA TV. Please round of applause for all of them. Bienvenidas de adelante Rita Guarino, Emily Heath, Amanda Lima y también Eugenia Károlyi. Welcome. Bienvenidas. Y
Gracias.
Eugenia, todo tuyo. Luego nos vemos.
Genial. Gracias.
Chao.
Is everyone here? I think everyone's here. Well, we're all here and we're excited to be here today to speak about this passionate topic as women who work in football and as many women that are here today at this World Football Summit that is growing so much. I remember a few years ago talking about women's football and women in football at the World Football Summit, and I turned around and everybody on the audience was basically male. All the women that were at the World Football Summit that year were on stage at that moment. And this year we have almost 40% of speakers are women. So I think that it's a combined effort of organizations like World Football Summit, brands like Rexona that are allowing for platforms and to elevate the role of women in the world of football. But still, we have only 30% of women today can name or will name their role model another woman, and versus 98% of men who will define their role model as a man. So I think that we're here to talk about how we're going to change that and how we are changing that and what brands, organizations, and everybody who's a woman in football and also the men that are making those efforts as well, the combined efforts in order to make this possible. So first of all, thank you, all three of you, for being here today, and everybody who's in the audience as well, because this is a combined effort, not just of brands, organizations, but also the fans and the audience of football in general. So my first question to all of you, Rita, and Amanda, is how do you define a role model, and who was your role model as a child? Amanda.
I start.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here and for the invitation, first of all. I think it's a tough question because it's really hard to define, right? I think people are different and it's very particular in the way that you see as role models. So for me, a role model is someone who I look at and that person makes me want to do better and want to make a better person. So that's the role model for me. And when I was a child, my role model was my big sister.
Why was your big sister?
Because
What did she inspire in you? Because I think it's all about inspiration, right?
it's all about inspiration. And as I said, the way I defined a role model, that was exactly what she was for me. So when I used to look at her, I used to think, oh, I want to be like her, The things that she does inspire me to become better and to learn and to, one day do the same things as she used to in the past. So, and again, wasn't an athlete at that time, but was someone who was very close to me on my day-to-day life.
Of course. Em?
So it was a bit of a strange one for me. So when I think back to being a child myself, I don't actually recall having female role models. And I was a very sporty kid, and I wanted to be an athlete when I grew up, and I actually wanted to be a skier. And the first role model I can recall is a British skier called Graham Bell. So the first role model I remember is actually a male. And part of me feels upset about that because actually I should have had that opportunity to see female role models out there. But as such a young child and with such a big dream at that moment, I didn't even imagine that actually his life couldn't be my life. So I think it's really important and part of the discussion we want to have today, and I really hope that those of you in this audience and those can go and inspire those that aren't in the audience to really think about how important it is to ensure that there are role models accessible to everyone, both within male and female.
I think it's interesting what you're saying, because I think it's really relative to what you wanted to be when you grew up, and if you had role models in that path, right? Yeah. For example, in my case, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a singer, and my role model all my life was Shakira. So I did have a female role model, but I can imagine, and Rita will tell us that now, that if you were a footballer, you didn't have that many people to look up to. I then became a crazy, passionate person about football, but if I would have wanted to do what I do now when I was, 10 years old, I didn't realize it until later on, but if I would have wanted to do it like at a younger age, I probably wouldn't have had another sports journalist or sportscaster or a lot of women working in football at the time to look up to, right? Rita, what was your experience like? Who was your role model?
I started to play football so late because for my parents, the sport more feminine was figure roller skating. So I started to play at 14 maybe, and so I was aspiring from the men's side, and I grew up when Paolo Rossi scored for the World Cup in 1882. So and after in the 90. With Roberto Baggio and Totò Schillaci for the World Cup of 1990. And I find my role models, female role models, just when I joined the national team in 1991 for the World Cup. And so I was inspired from my teammates and the other players of the other country. And so I was 20, so it's very late to be inspired from the women's side, and now it's totally different. So it's I know that just 38% are inspired from females, but I think that 30 years ago it was more less.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we could go on all day here talking about inspiration and what our experiences were and so on. But there's actually research being done regarding this matter. And there's findings that are saying how important the fact of female role models is in order to evolve as society in general. I'm not just talking about football here. And I know, you in Rexona, you've done a lot of research. So would love to know, what have you found out with this research, and how can we change the playing field? Let's watch that presentation that you have.
Thank you. So just because I know there's people in the room from around the world, so if you don't identify with the brand Rexona, we are also referred to as Sure, Shield, Degree, and Rexina. We are an antiperspirant brand, and we are the world's #1 antiperspirant brand within the Unilever family. So we've conducted some research very recently. In fact, the findings only came back over the weekend, so apologies if I have to reference some of them from my sheets to remember what they actually say. And the reason we wanted to do this is because within Rexona, we have a CSR program called the Breaking Limits program, which is a program designed and was launched in 21 to help provide better opportunities for all young people, girls, boys, children with different abilities, different backgrounds, different economical situations, to provide those opportunities that everyone should have to be able to take part in sport, as well as then providing them with the confidence that they need to get started and to get involved. And we do this by investing into the communities that are helping to create the change, and then creating access to a digital series of training modules which help create, which train the trainers, whether that be coaches, teachers, community workers, carers, to understand how they can instill that confidence into young people. And within the Breaking Limits program, we have a series of modules called Girls Can, which have been specifically created in partnership with FIFA to help give better confidence to girls within the game of football. We have 3 modules already. One is around creating physical and mental safety for girls to take part. The second one is around helping girls feel confident in their body to play, so just feeling that they belong on that pitch as well. And then the last one is really breaking down those racial barriers that are stopping girls playing. So we know that within some markets like the US, soccer is still very much predominantly a middle-class white sport, and we need to ensure that we are giving that the ability for all ethnicities to have that access. So the reason we conducted the research is we want to understand what is the next level we need to go to, what are additional barriers that we could address to create the change needed. And one of the ones that sort of came up in our research was this notion of role models, and girls having that ability to see it and therefore believe that they can play that role. And we know that more that girls see people like them playing, or people like them within the community of sport and football, the more likely is they're going to engage and get involved. So this research was really part of that journey. So to just sort of kick it off. So this is the first one. Half of girls are saying today that they have either no or few role models in sports. And showing my own history, most of my role models in sports are guys. And we know that if you don't have those role models accessible to you, then you don't necessarily dream and believe what could be. So therefore, that just doesn't feel like it's within your reach. You can't necessarily imagine a career in the sport, or you can't even just necessarily imagine taking part in it for the fun of it, or just to build a community and build friends. And the conversations we're having today are not just about creating that pathway to the elite, it's about creating the ability for anyone to take part. And I think you can kind of see universally across the UK, Brazil, and US, which represent our largest markets, this is true. The people we spoke to were aged 9 to 14, and we did the research in partnerships with their parents to help guide them through the discussions. And we did also question boys within this to ensure that we had the right benchmarking. I think the other thing that wasn't necessarily unsurprising is that girls receive less support than boys. And this conversation isn't about pushing boys down to build girls up. It's keeping boys where they are and continuously investing in that system, but ensure we're creating the equity for girls to have the same. So girls should be receiving the same support end to end to take part in sport and football. It shouldn't just be something that is remaining to be dominated by boys. So this is something that's really important, because we know that with the right support models in place, and those support models aren't just seeing girls playing on the pitch, it's about the right coaches, the right security teams, the right physiotherapists, the right psychologists, and so on, that actually that helps create the confidence in those girls to take part. And confidence is such a key barrier when it comes to sport at wide. So this is really not necessarily when you hear these statistics, you think, oh God, this is super surprising. A lot of it is common sense, but actually it's really good to sort of see the hard facts to therefore know where you should be acting. And sort of moving on to, as I was just mentioning, role models don't just need to be on the pitch. And this is really where the role of brands come in, because I'm representing a brand. We often invest in the elite at the top. We work with clubs as Rexona. We also work with large tournaments from FIFA to UEFA to Copa and CONMEBOL. We also have relationships with AFCON as well. And then at the bottom, we are building this CSR program to ensure that we are investing into the grassroots system. But everything in the middle and everything around the edges is also a place that brands can be playing, and a place where brands can be identifying the right role models that make sense for their brands and what they're offering. So it's not just about the elite superstars. It's not just about those girls physically playing on the pitch. It's really identifying all the role models and the places they can play. So I just want to encourage everyone to think this isn't just about playing football. It's about the system surrounding it. And then I think one thing that's really key in understanding, where does the role of brands come in? Yes, it's identifying who is the right role models for you. But one of the really big unlocks in how we can better connect with girls and how we can help them believe that they have a role to play is through the storytelling and the narrative that can come with it. So we know from some of the research we've done that like girls across US, Brazil, and the UK, they feel inspired when they see skill and talent playing out. They feel inspired when they can see the determination. They like to see the fun and the joy and the resilience that individuals go through at all levels. And therefore, the role of brands is how do we create the storytelling and the narrative around that to craft our campaigns that then help create that shift and help get people to be involved. So these are really sort of some of the big findings we're seeing through the research. It's really understanding that girls are lacking those role models, understanding that it's all about ensuring that they have the right support system around them and they have equal support as boys, and that support system is a total end-to-end ecosystem, and then the narrative that needs to play out and shifting that narrative and ensuring that that narrative is really considering all of the different ways that you can inspire girls to get involved. So this is really what the research is telling us, and that's really how it's now sort of inspiring what our campaigns are going to look like when we do the Women's Europeans next year. We've got the Women's World Cup in 27. It also inspired the campaign that we've got live at the moment with the Women's Under-20 World Cup that is currently live in progress now in Colombia. We've created a campaign called See Her Game, and it's inspired by the fact that FIFA's doing a huge amount of work to get more eyes on this tournament. You know, this is the first year it's had proper broadcast deals surrounding it, but actually it's still not really known about, and therefore, you know, there's this disconnect between the sort of elite tournaments that are happening atop, between what's happening underneath it and the pathway that's going to take girls to the Women's Euros or the women's version of Copa and the World Cup. And so it's really important that we get more people to see her and inspiring her, because otherwise we're going to have this massive gap between like really young grassroots and the elite, and we aren't creating the pathway that's connecting them in the middle. We know girls are dropping out of sport around the age of 12 to 14. 50% of girls drop out of sport at that age, 6 times more than what you see in boys. Now, and a huge part of that is a fear of judgment, a fear that they don't belong, that they're going to be judged and questioned for why they're there. I don't fit in, I don't look right, I don't want to be seen, I'm playing a boys' game when I'm a girl, and so on. And fear of judgment is something we all experience, and even adults experience fear of judgment when it comes to being physically active, but it's really key to create interventions at that age so that tournaments like the under-17s or the under-20s are then creating the connection through to the elite. So this is what we found, and hopefully it really is creating our campaign pathway as well as our advocacy pathway as well.
I love one thing that you mentioned, how the role models need to go beyond the pitch. And it's like football in general. It's so much more than 90 minutes of a match, right? It impacts every single of our lives in here in this auditorium and everybody that's watching us on the live stream as well. Rita, I wanted to ask you, how do these findings resonate with your own personal and professional experience as a footballer, as a coach after that, and now just as a woman that still works in football and lives and breathes football still?
For my, it's so different. When I was a player, I started to coach when I was a player. When I was 25, I create from scratch a team in my club where I played during my international career, during my university plan, and I create from scratch this team. And before of that, I didn't know how was important was for me inspire other people, and from this experience was unbelievable that girls are need someone that indicate the way that they can do, because sometimes girls are not confident in what they have, what they can do or what they can do. So it's very important that someone can indicate the path that they can follow. And so it was my first experience. And then when I became to be a coach, was totally different because you are there to support, and yeah, you can transfer your experience as a player, and it's important, but because they know that if the coach was able to do that, I am able to do that. So it's very important, because if it's more, you can increase your self-esteem, you can increase your confidence, you can increase your self-efficacy too, because if the role model is close to you, is a female, so you can imagine that you can do that,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
a woman do that before me. So it's point of view different as a player, as a coach, and I I support not just encourage players to stay on the top, but encourage also girls and who love football just to play and fun and be determined to follow their dream, because I think not everybody can get the top
Yeah.
of the level, but just enjoy and take fun.
But it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, right? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a lot
for sure.
about the purpose, like fulfilling your life purpose, the transformation and the inspiration in
Yeah.
general. No? The joy to inspire other people to be able to reach their dreams. Amanda, as an organization that Laureus works a lot with sporting legends, how transformative is the impact of these role models, women role models, on younger girls?
Oh, yeah, it's huge. First of all, Laureus is very privileged to work with, this network of amazing athletes around the world. So what we see when we work with organizations on the ground and we have this engagement from those top-level athletes, it's insane to see the positive impact that they generate on the participants of the programs, especially when they are female.
Yeah.
Again, because this is a topic, and that's the reason why we are here, that we are seeing that is getting more and more importance because of the data that shows the female athlete in general and as role model is still level up as the male athletes, right? So what we see most of the time is that most of those participants from grassroots programs, especially from those areas that is very underprivileged, they see those athletes as gods and goddess, untouchable people, right? And when they come and they start to engage with those kids on a much lower personal level, they start to understand that, oh, actually, they are people like us. And when they start to share these stories, like what Rita was saying, about her own personal life, they start to connect more and they start to understand, actually, they are very important, they are my role model, I love them, but, they still been through challenges that I face as well.
Of course.
For boys, and it's different than girls because, and we see that on program visits when we take athletes over to visit the program, as an example. When we take a male athlete, the reaction of the boys, and obviously I'm being very general here, but most of the time, the boys, they are very excited and they are very confident and they want to show how well they play football and all these kind of things, They pretty much, they want to show off because the confidence level is already there. Where for the girls, most of the time, they are super excited to see the role model, female, but they are shy.
Shy.
Or, it's completely different. So I think for females models, athletes, the approach most of the time is different. They understand that, you know, it's much more impactful if they sit down on the floor with the girls, they have a chat, they try to understand, you know, the surrounds, the local context, and they try to share stories, real stories. I think that is where the real connection makes the huge impact.
It's more like one-on-one and showing that it goes so much. What you just said, it just proves how this is not about inspiring women to become a football player or somebody who works in football or in sports in general, but it's about inspiring women in society and inspiring women and the evolution of society altogether for men and women in general. 100%. Listening to Rita and Amanda saying this, are we doing enough to elevate the role of women as role models, and especially all stakeholders, but since you're a brand, what else can brands do?
Yeah, so in short, no, we're not doing enough. And I think we're at quite a dangerous territory at the moment where women's sport is finally getting the exposure it deserves. But that exposure is nowhere near equal to what the male sport is getting today. And we've seen, you know, it was brilliant this year at the Olympics within the summer that finally, after like over 100 years, we managed to get 50% reputation of women taking part in the games. But to be clear, it was qualifying slots. The reality was the numbers that turned up were not 50-50. And I think that it just, people think, oh, well, women's sport, it's made it, it's finally there, we don't need to worry about it anymore. It's like, no, we do, because there's still so much still to learn. Like, there was a worrying stat 3 or 4 years ago that only 2% of sports science is conducted on women. So therefore, training programs are all created with men's physiology in mind, and that's really worrying. And when it comes to fundamentally just learning more about how to get women to play and how to make them feel confident to play, I think there's no end to the research we could be doing. As Rexona, we're on a bit of a new journey. We've been building this up since about 2020. We're not doing enough, but we have at least started, and we're committed. You know, we set out a commitment with FIFA last year at the Women's World Cup that we will get together more girls and women to play. And that is a commitment that's taken us through our partnership, but it will take us beyond that partnership because it sits at the heart of what this brand stands for. So we're doing some good stuff. We've done some good stuff last year at the Women's World Cup. We have our Breaking Limits program that's been on the ground for 4 years and will continue. We're having this campaign live at the moment with the under-20s, and we've got more to come over the coming years. But as I say, like, I don't feel like we're doing enough, but we will keep striving to do more, and we just hope that sort of other brands will join us in that journey and see that this is really make or break for women's football, but women's sport at wide. And I'm really worried that it will break because people are maybe getting complacent too soon. Like, they can see some of the hype and they probably think that's enough, and it's not. There's just so much more we need to learn.
Rita, why do you think male role models have more visibility? And as a player and as a coach, did you face any challenges in order to inspire more superstars, more future superstars during your career and today still?
I think that they have more history. The first World Cup of the female for women was in the 1991, and the first
men's.
What?
The first men's was like 100 years before. It's going to be 100 years soon.
Yeah. And the first participation to an Olympic Games was in 1986. So it's very late compared to the men. So it's historical. And I think that we must be able to create a new narrative for women that is not better or worse than the men, but it's different. And if you want to have more visibility, you have to rewrite the history, and so from another perspective. And I think that there are a lot of role models. It's not just because they won something, they won Champions League or World Cup or Olympic Games, but because they are able to be very determined, resilient, to do something that most of the people doesn't believe that you can do that. So it's very important, not just for future female footballers, but also for life, for all the girls, but also for all the women, because you can be inspired from women in sport and transfer that in life. So it's very important. Yesterday night I talked with a person, a girl. She was a footballer, and she was a great injuries during the college career, and now she's a founder and CEO of a company that find a solution for her health and recovery from injuries and etc. And so she transformed a bad situation in something of new.
Yeah. To
So
continue her passion.
it's for me, it's a person that we can
Inspire.
yeah, inspire. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and I think that's
it's
what that's what
and
it's.
we need uh, to tell this history.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all about inspiring other future generations, and also amongst ourselves, inspiring each other and to follow, that purpose. And the visibility that brands and organizations like World Football Summit, like all the Laureus, brands like Rexona. We can go on and on all day talking about this, but I knew that we were going to be short on time because we're all so passionate about this. But I think it's key that we know or learn more than know, learn, because we're all like in this learning process. How can we help realize the inspirational potential? Because we've all mentioned the word inspiration, purpose, and transformation in this panel today. So what is the potential, and how can we help realize the inspiration of female role models in markets where they are less visible? Because women's football is growing, we know it, at a super fast pace, but there's markets still, and there's regions where it's still not so visible. How can we make that potential grow?
I think it's, first of all, trying to understand local context, right? So what is right for one country will be completely the opposite for others, and so on. So it's very hard to answer as a, as a whole.
Yeah.
Cultural aspect is huge. So I guess consultation with the young people, with girls and young women, not only assuming what they need, but really ask what they need, ask what they want. Because I think you can have a role model, you can inspire to be a footballer yourself, but let's say if you are a young mother, solo, in a country where you don't have support, you don't have familiar instructor support as well, it's going to be much, much harder for you to get there. So it doesn't matter how inspired you are by a female, role model, it still is a huge challenge. So for me, I try to think how this external network influence can support this young mother, as an example, for her to be able to, to reach her dreams. So in some of the programs that we work with, we see sometimes the conjunction of having a role model, inspiring, motivating, saying, I've been there, or I share my story of challenges as well. But at the same time, having this network support who can help this girl to also achieve, what she needs and what she wants. So again, as I said at the beginning, to fully understand outside of, the just motivation of playing a sport, but really trying to understand all the challenges that is stopping this girl of taking part of sport practice.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's, with the envisioning of high performance, or only play, or only, to have fun, or only for this girl to feel that she belongs to that space.
Of course.
So some countries, especially football, it's a very male-dominated sport. And if this girl, she wants to play football, automatically the response will be, no, you're not allowed here because you're a girl.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Well,
to
that's
try
why
to
we're here.
understand exactly
Exactly.
how to change that and how to make, you know, this girl feel that, no, she belongs to that
She
space.
belongs. It's all
Why
about
not?
giving the opportunities to these girls who belong. I wish we could stay here longer because I think there's so much to talk about and so much work to still do. But first, I want to thank everybody who came early today to watch this panel, to be a part of this change, of this evolution. Rita, Amanda, thank you for the work that you're doing for all of us, because this is a collective work, and it's something that we all do together, not just women, but also women and men, and also men who are giving us this opportunity. Anybody in the audience who wants to ask questions, look for us outside on the floor during the day. We'll all be around. Or catch us on the app, send us a message, connect with us, because this is something that we cannot do alone. It's a collective work in order to not just inspire, but open the path for future generations so they don't face the same challenges that Rita, Amanda, or myself have faced when it comes to looking up to somebody who can inspire us to transform our lives and become the best version of ourselves as human beings and obviously as women in football. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.